let us bring them on the show, everybody. We were going to talk mainly about Panquake and the importance of Panquake, and we wanted to bring both of these gentlemen back on the show. They've both been on the show before. First of all, ex-CIA and whistleblower John Kiriaka was here. Let's bring him on the show. John, how are you?
Hey, doing well, thanks, Graham. Sorry to hear about YouTube, man. Not good.
Well, dude, that's
everybody I know. This is happening to everybody I know. It's awful. Sorry.
I know it's great. I mean, it's insane. I mean, it's happened on YouTube. I mean, I have several friends, and I'm sure you know people too, worked at RT America. So they just basically wiped RT America off the face of the earth. I mean,
just like that.
And all these really good shows, Redacted Tonight, On Contact, Boom Bust, Max Kaiser, all these shows that I watched that brought news and information to people in a way that the American media isn't. It's
awful, terrible.
We live in crazy times.
We do.
But we'll bring also on the CSO of Panquake, who's been on the show before, Mr. Sean O'Brien. Sean, how you doing?
Great. Happy to be here.
Excellent. Well, let's get right into it. About, first of all, where Panquake is. It's close to being done. I've talked to Susie about it. And then I want to really get into the importance of it, especially to what we were just talking about, John and I were just talking about, and all the censorship all of us have seen. So why don't you just give us sort of an update of where it's at and the status of it, and then we'll get into the reasons why.
Sure. So as a lot of your audience knows, Panquake.com is a short messaging service. We've been working on it from a development standpoint since approximately last summer. And stuff is moving very, very quickly. The development process is going really fast. We just revealed to the world the look and feel. So the beautiful screens showing what a Panquake dashboard will look like, this environment that we want folks to be happy living in, expressing themselves, sharing information, and having a network where they really can feel and know, actually, transparently, that they're reaching the folks that they intend to reach, that they have the amplification they should have, that they have the voice that they should have on social media. So we have, a functioning interface. John has seen it, and we have demoed it to some other folks as well. We're constantly building and adding to that, and we're pushing. So we're in the last phase of our crowd fundraiser. So we're a crowdfunding model here. We've had approximately 3,500 folks donate to that crowdfunder, which is just incredible. And we need to get through this last phase, get across the goal line so we can bring the folks we need to bring in for things like support, making sure we have real humans and not algorithms, right? Who are going to help our folks, if they need that support in the network. And just upping the business, really. Yeah.
And just for people to look here, I've just put it, this is what the interface looks like. I've seen it as well. It's pretty amazing to see how functional it is. And then to just go back to, this is how many people have donated thus far. This is the campaign. And this is, to me, already showing how hungry everybody is for this and what it's going to do. And it was really sort of exciting for me and for myself, for all of us to see this. One of the things that I find exciting about it is that, as a stand-up comedian, just as somebody that promotes shows, I've been so, throttled that I've amassed followers on all these social media platforms. And then I tell them, hey, I'm coming to your town to perform or watch my live stream or whatever. And they're like, never heard of it. They're not even allowed to hear of it. So it's really just as a performer, not to mention all the other reasons to use it for censorship. But I want to so John, what drew you to this project and how do you see it?
Yeah.
How do you see it interacting with the intelligence community, which really has hijacked so many of these social media platforms.
Really great questions. This is the best way to open this conversation. What drew me was several different things, actually. Number one, I've gotten to the point where I have to go to my Twitter every day to see if they've put a little red tag saying that I'm an official mouthpiece of the Russian government, which I'm not. But I mean, poor Ed Schultz has been dead for how many years, and they made him they put a tag on him saying that he's a mouthpiece of the Russian government. So that was one thing that bothers me very much. More importantly, though, you know, I used to go to Twitter constantly to read the news. What I would do is, because I can't read everything as much as I would like to, I would follow people that I respect from a wide variety of backgrounds and look all day long to see what they're posting. What's Ralph Nader saying, right? What's the Marshall Center saying, or the Brennan Center, or ProPublica? And now it's, you know, so much of what I used to be interested in is banned, or it's you can't find Telesur, you can't find RT or Sputnik. Anything that I'm interested in that has to do with prison reform, for example, is deemed to be anti-American. And so all of a sudden, I just can't read the news anymore. Facebook's even worse. Facebook beat Twitter to the punch. They're even worse. And then about a year ago, Susie Dawson approached me and told me about Panquake. And the idea behind Panquake was no corporate money, no government money, no advertising, completely open source code so that everything is transparent. And I mean, like, in the literal sense of the word, it's transparent. There is no big brother to go through our posts and then impose an algorithm on us that's going to decide what our friends and followers can see and what they can't see. So, you know, we give a lot of lip service, Graham, to freedom of speech and to transparency. And 9 times out of 10, at least here in the United States with these corporate run sites, we're just not serious about it. Well, what told me that Panquake was serious about it was the fact that it's hosted in Iceland, which I absolutely love. So it's not subject to a national security letter from the FBI demanding all of your user data and all this other nonsense that we see all the time in the news. And because there are no outside investors, no corporations or governments or think tanks or anything else, there's no pressure to squelch free speech. So this, in my view, is what these big tech platforms originally thought they wanted to be, and then realized that they could never be. Never.
Yeah. And I mean, you especially you read a book like, you know, when Google met WikiLeaks, you know, you realize that, like, Google has been basically doing data collection for the intelligence community for quite a while. So it's not
Absolutely. You know, I remember, it's been 10 or 12 years now, when somebody, I don't know who, somebody leaked to WikiLeaks that it wasn't just Google. It was literally every one of the big tech firms, from Microsoft to Google to Apple to all the big communications companies. Every last one of them was providing information to the CIA and to NSA and to the FBI with these national security letters. Well, you have to ask yourself, when the director of security for Microsoft is the former station chief, well, I shouldn't say where he was the station chief, but, you know, there's a problem. There's a problem with this. How do we trust this company? Well, Panquake, I can trust.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's so fascinating to me is, like, in you know, in how Susie's explained it to me and to all of us. Like, I'm you know, I'm not a coder, I'm not a tech guy at all, and so the questions that have come up, like, And because Susie's been targeted herself, and because she knew Julian and understands how this works, you guys have put in so much stuff to prevent all of this, like the Iceland thing. I never even would have thought of that, and the servers are not Amazon servers, because that's boom. They can just call up Amazon, say shut it down, and it's done. Yep. And Jeff Bezos has got $600 million from the CIA, so we we know where he's at. So I want to some of the questions, and Sean, I know you can answer these. The questions of can it be hacked? Can somebody just come in and buy Panquake and snatch up all your data? Is all the data going to be stored somewhere so everyone can steal it or hack it or whatever? Can you answer those questions for anybody?
Sure. And first, I just want to say, the points you're making and the way we're talking about this is absolutely correct, right? We want to be a lifeboat away from big tech. And that's, an analogy, of course, but it's one we really, really mean. Protecting data is actually protecting lives, especially when we're talking about, high value targets for the CIA, et cetera, et cetera. Activists who are making an impact, right? They know that they're being targeted. It has a real effect on their lives. And these other social media sites that are advertising, surveilling, creating these frameworks, which in turn work with these state agencies, they are exposing people to real harm and real danger. So that's exactly the thing that we care about, protecting people from. And that's why we're building things the way we're building them. So on the building piece. We have our core infrastructure in Iceland. It's a good jurisdiction for, freedom of speech and a number of other protections from specifically the US government, but other governments as well. But also we have a decentralized model, right? We have a blockchain-based model, and our nodes, the machines, the people, right, with smartphones and desktop computers and so on, that will be in panquake.com, those folks will be communicating to each other using peer-to-peer connections, right? So we're making sure we're using the edge of the network. We're having folks communicate in a decentralized, not cloud computing way, and that in turn makes a network very resilient against things like, DDoSing and other kinds of attacks that could bring it down, right? We spread out the computing as far as we possibly can. We make sure we have strong encryption, strong, authentication and verification of users between other users. And we have some clever encryption we're implementing to do all of that. We make sure that we have open source code, right? So we're going to release, with the Panquake launch, we're going to release the code for the entire stack. That means anybody can review and audit that, and we will have the best and brightest security experts, and already do have quite a few, looking at that work, looking at that code. So that's sort of the fundamental things. But if you care about protecting data, right, don't take that data in the first place, okay? One of the analogies that a lot of security experts talk about is data as what they call a toxic asset. And that means basically, the more data you collect, the more you sort of put it on a shelf somewhere. It's like a corroding battery that just gets worse and worse and worse. These other services, right, that we're so used to using on the internet have these huge databases, these huge server farms that have all this information on their users, all these profiles and so on. At Panquake, right, we don't want that data in the first place, okay? Anything that's even remotely sensitive will be on your machine. So we're architecting it so that you have a user data store on your devices, and that's your data. You own it. We don't want it.
So you're not even collecting the data.
Right. That's right. That's exactly right. So
Pretty
you're
cool,
not going
right?
to. You don't even have to use. It's incredible, right?
Yeah, it's incredible. I love it.
Yeah, but it's so simple, really, and we're not going to collect email addresses or phone numbers or those kinds of things that folks are now having to use all the time to verify themselves on these other networks. we don't want it, right? That's good for us, right? And it's good for you. And that's the basic principle there. The nuts and bolts of how it works. I mean, we're taking some very clever pieces of software, some very clever encryption. We're decentralizing and spreading things out like true peer-to-peer networks. We're doing a lot of the things which, other transformative, apps are doing to change the world, and this thing that some folks are starting to call Web3, right? Although we'll see if that catches on. But the point is, it's about breaking down these control structures, breaking down the centralization of the network environment that we have, which is what allows the Googles, et cetera, to have the censorship that they have. But it also allows them, right, to basically ruin people's lives by amassing these huge profiles on people and then following them throughout their entire childhood now. I mean, the people who've grown up in this environment all the way through, they hope, the end of their lives. That's the Google plan, right? And that's something we not only would never do, we don't want to do it. And because we're not focusing on spying on people, right, like these other companies are, and they put all this engineering effort into trying to figure out who people are and who they're talking to and how to stop them from talking to specific people or stop them from sharing different information, that takes a lot of engineering work, right? Because we're not doing all that, we can use our engineering muscle, right, to deliver something different that allows information to be amplified freely, allows you to reach your audience and know verifiably and transparently with the blockchain record that you're reaching your audience, and so on and so forth. It's simple. Right. It's in some ways going back to, the better parts of the internet before it was destroyed in the last, 10, 15, 20 years by these big tech companies. And we're using the lessons and the cool technology that's out now to reinvent that internet into something that's better and more powerful. So,
well, that's got to have them all befuddled, because you're not creating something to try to take over the world and become billionaires and build rocket ships to fly away from a planet that you let set on fire. So I wanted to, and since we've all seen, how they've used infiltrated social media, like the intelligence and stuff, to blow up activist movements. You see these infiltrators, they'll have a profile that, you read the profile, boy, they seem like they're a real true lefty activist. It says free Assange and Medicare for all or whatever else. And then they're always like stirring shit up or whatever. So I wanted to, Sean, quickly tell us like how that works in terms of the giving someone a pancake and giving them the authority to do that, so that even because the question is like, okay, so you guys are doing $5 a month subscription. What's to prevent Google or the CIA or whomever to buy a bunch of bot accounts, and then they can just take this thing over, and in 6 months to a year, it'll be ruined again, just like the last cool thing we thought was going to be great that's now ruined.
Sure. So there's a few mechanisms that we're sort of building in at a fundamental level. We'll obviously also have checks and balances, intrusion detection systems and so on, so that we can start spotting, real attacks on the network. But putting aside that technical stuff, first off, the subscriber model is a good way to limit things like botnets, like all these bots, swarming and creating these, what used to be called egg accounts on Twitter, right? These BS accounts with 30 followers that just harass people and make people's lives miserable. That subscription actually does help to limit that somewhat. The types of tools that, the CIA, the NSA uses to spin up these fake personas, as they call them in their own documents, that is not going to be easy to do when you have a subscription model. So that's sort of the first thing, right?
I guess you're really, if they want to buy a bunch of bots, well, that's thanks for the $5 from all these robots, right? I guess
that's one way to think about it. Do they really want to be funding us, right? So at any rate, the second part is that it's an opt-in social network, in the sense that you're going to see content from the people you follow, or content, for example, that you might search for. So if you search for cats, you're going to see cats, right? That's not a very effective network for spies to use to amplify content and manipulate people, right? Because what they rely upon is spinning up these, groups of fake accounts so that they can basically push their narrative, so that they can have, these fake trawling conversations, shove things into people's timelines, manipulate on the back end when they can the algorithm to silence some voices and to allow some other voices to be bigger, so that their voices, the bots that they control, the paid staff that they pay to manipulate social feeds, those folks suddenly have a huge voice in these big tech networks, right? None of that's going to be possible in Panquake. Folks have a level playing field, which is very big to us. And it's not just about, the spies and all of that, which certainly is a problem that we're well aware of. But we want to be somebody who's, just starting out trying to promote content, such as yourself, Graham. I mean, you're not just starting out, but you would be when you get into Panquake, new there. We want you to have equal footing to, if I don't know, somebody who was some huge star came into the network, right? We want to know that those accounts start out on equal footing, have the ability to amplify, have the ability to reach their followers, and folks will find that they have a voice where they don't feel like they're, in some sort of popularity contest.
Right.
A lot of that, again, is just about not manipulating timelines, right? Not manipulating content, not forcing fake trends into people's faces that are advertising the next Disney thing. We're not doing any of that, but that also makes it so that a lot of the abuse, a lot of the things that Facebook especially has been called out for, can't happen in the network. If you're not manipulating algorithms, to do this terrible stuff, to do, manipulation of political beliefs for, some sort of political campaign and so on and so forth, then, there's a lot less to worry about as far as folks who are worried about, these kinds of, I don't know, these social engineers, let's say.
Right.
If we get us, someone in there who is trying to manipulate people, they're going to find it's going to be very, very difficult with the way that we're just having opt-in content, no trend manipulation, no timeline manipulation, and honest transparency about statistics. That alone is going to make it really hard for these folks to operate the way that they're used to operating in the big tech environment. So.
Yeah. And so let me ask you this, John. So like you've obviously experienced firsthand the targeting for being a whistleblower. You've seen it, the Assange movement, the WikiLeaks has been targeted. I mean, Susie Dawson just put in the chat how they shut down the PayPal donations during the fundraising of this. So how do you, we have to think in these terms, and this is the thing I liked in the conversations I had with Susie, is she's assuming these attacks are going to come. She's not like, let's hope they play nice. We know they're not going to play nice. We know what they're going to do. So what things do you see them trying to do to shut down Panquake, John? And how do you see Panquake being able to withstand these attacks?
I'm confident that Susie and Sean and the team have foreseen a lot of what we ought to be expecting. Basing the servers in Iceland, I think, was a stroke of genius. Even the corporate headquarters is offshore in a place that's very secure for this kind of thing. Very, very forward thinking. If I were still at the CIA or NSA, I would be looking for a technical way in. I think that the fact that there's this subscription service, which makes it almost impossible to create bots to attack the system unless the bots pay, the $5 a month, was also brilliant. What the CIA, I would expect different things from the CIA and from NSA. NSA, I would expect technical attacks. And Bill Binney's on the team. Bill can go into some deep detail on that kind of thing. He's a genius. On the CIA side, I would expect a different kind of underhandedness. I would expect personal attacks on Panquake's leadership. I would expect articles condemning all of us who are involved for whatever reason. Oh, John Kiriakou, he's a convicted felon. You want to be in business with a convicted felon? I get that all the time from people who can't debate on the issues. So, what they did to WikiLeaks allowed us to learn lessons, and we've been able to safeguard ourselves, to protect ourselves from those kinds of attacks. It's going to be much, much harder to attack Panquake than it is to attack WikiLeaks. And because Panquake is still so small, it's still, in its nascent stages, I think we largely haven't come to their attention yet. And I'm optimistic that once we do come to their attention, once we're big enough or important enough to be worth attacking, we'll be so ready for them that there won't be anything that they can do.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can't wait for the article that Panquake is helping Putin or whatever.
Exactly.
That
And it's coming. It's
Putin.
coming.
They're going to hashtag Putinquake or whatever.
Right. Putinquake. Great. Yeah. Just like Ed Snowden defected to Russia. Like nobody in America remembers that he was in the transit lounge when John Kerry revoked his passport. Right. So yeah, histories change as time passes. It's going to be up to us to make sure that the truth is out there.
Which again, Panquake will afford us that safe place to do it. And I want people to understand that this wasn't just like something slapped together. You've got Bill Binney involved, NSA whistleblower. John, you're a CIA whistleblower involved. You've got Susie, who's been targeted. You've got people who played this game and see the tactics. And so, let's all just be ready for the whatever Panquake kills puppies headline from CNN or whatever.
Exactly.
That's how you know you're making an impact, right?
How else are you going to attack the former number 4 at NSA, NSA's technical director, who's arguably one of the greatest minds in America on the issue of internet security and privacy? How else are you going to attack him?
Right. Yeah, you've got to say he killed Christmas or whatever.
Exactly.
Like Bill Binney hates rainbows or whatever they're gonna say. The thing too, I want to talk about this as well because Susie, one of the things our conversation her and I had was about she wants to be ready to have staff in place so that if it takes off, it's not overwhelmed. Because that's another thing too. We get all of a sudden, 2 million people sign up for this thing in 20 days. Oh, we don't know. We don't have the staff in place to do that. So what steps are you guys taking in case that, which would be a good problem to have for that to be handled?
So we have a staggered release model, right? So first, I just want to say, if you folks are interested in our progress and how we're building and the direction we're moving in and why we're making certain choices and so on, we do monthly delivery meetings where we recap basically everything that happened in the month, both the technical stuff and the non-technical. And we just make sure we have that transparency for all of our donors and the public in general. But yeah, we do staggered releases, basically. So first off, we are having a beta, right? And that beta will have 5,000 users in it. If folks would like to apply to potentially be someone who can join the beta, you can go out to panquake.com. There's a link to apply to join the beta. We just want to make sure we do a little bit of vetting and we don't have bots swarming us at the beginning, right? Yeah. So that's the kind of thing we're being smart about, and that model is very smart that way. And not just bots, but disruptive folks. And so we like disruptive folks of a certain kind, but we want to have trustworthy folks in the network who really care about what we're doing and so on and so forth. That's a smart thing to do. Then we go to the 1.1, and we're going to get to 25,000 users for that release. So we're just having just a little bit larger for that. And then we will open it to the public and have sort of this staggered release model that allows us to make sure, especially with a blockchain, right, we have to have that core of trust in the beginning. The folks who are part of what's called a consensus model and your audience who are cryptocurrency folks, I'm sure are familiar with this kind of thing. You need to make sure that core is non-malicious actors, basically. So we have to have that really trusted core of folks in the beginning. And then we just sort of move out and branch out. The support plan, which is something that the staff is working on, and which I'm sure we will talk about this month in the delivery meeting and probably continue to talk about, is very smart. We're making sure that we're scaling or planning to scale, having real humans who can help real people, and doing that and making sure that's in place, giving people that different experience from, all this algorithmic, BS that they're used to, is also really important to us, right? We want people to be respected. We're building respect in not just into the technology, right, but also into the way that we're building the infrastructure around that, the human infrastructure around that. So that's really a big part of it. But also, I will say, like, this decentralization stuff, right, which has already changed the world with, cryptocurrency and some other decentralized apps that are out there, D-apps or whatever folks want to call it. It's really powerful. It's really scalable. So we can plan sort of a staging of bringing more and more nodes online, expanding the network out across continents and so on and so forth. We're using the pipe in very efficient ways, so to speak, right? We're not just funneling a bunch of data into a Google data center somewhere or relying upon some Amazon AWS server that we're renting, that's not even ours. And that kind of thing allows us to really plan in a smart way. We don't want to be like some of these networks that folks may be familiar with, the Getters, which had, Getter had all kinds of problems, to put it mildly. Truth Social, the Trump network that seems to have fallen apart before it started, barely. That kind of thing are the mistakes that we are well aware of, and we can make sure that we don't do. But also, I mean, look, we want to have something sustainable here. We're not trying to, as we said, have VC money or corporate PR teams. We don't have corporate marketing teams. Everything we've raised to this point is grassroots money from folks who are donating their hard-earned cash to us to do something amazing. And that's been done, with word of mouth. Our word of mouth and speaking to each other, human to human, is really, really powerful. So we have regular people being our voice. We're going to get that critical mass. And when we get there, right, we get those folks on board, and we can't be ignored by the corporations and these other folks. That's when you'll see the smear pieces, certainly. But that's also when you're going to see a situation where we can't be ignored and we're on the front pages, right? You have to build it that way. And that's a lesson, really, that, we learned in some respect from WikiLeaks, right? They built something that couldn't be ignored there. They were releasing information that was vitally, important, and did it in such a clever way, especially with the numerous releases that they did. That, even though the mainstream media didn't want to report this stuff, they had to. Right. And that's sort of the thing that we're learning and trying to do with Panquake as well. We want to be something big that people care about, that people are part of, real ordinary folks, and then, conquer the world. Let's hope. We'll see.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. We are still in our 9th month of demonetization from YouTube. So support what we're doing at patreon.com/Graham Elwood or rockfin.com/Graham Elwood, which is a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. It's free to sign up, and there's a premium level at $10 a month. And for that, you get everybody on the platform's premium content. Myself, Lee Camp, Ron Placone, Jimmy Dore, Whitney Webb, Kim Iverson, Abby Martin, and many, many others. You can also support what we're doing at Venmo at Graham-Elwood. And go to GrahamElwood.com. We have a PayPal button and a P.O. box. I also have crypto wallets, which are all in the show notes. Thanks for supporting what we do.